Brothers and sisters, we live in an age where it is more and more likely that the best applicant for a particular job may not necessarily get it. While in the past one may have had a reasonable expectation of getting a job for which they were best suited, today that no longer applies, unless of course one also happens to fit into a whole series of categories. If one doesn't fit the right categories, another person who does may get the job, even if they don't have the relevant and necessary skills and experience. Today, the demands for equality have gone so far that what we have now is surely bordering on reverse discrimination. Logical decision-making has gone out the window. So much has the world changed in such a short time that Germaine Greer, who was once considered the champion for women's rights, is now considered a bigot and hate person. So, what has all of this got to do with today's readings? Well, brothers and sisters, Jesus is God, and as such, he alone is 100% just. Though first century Palestine and much of the Roman Empire may have had societal biases and injustices against women, Jesus, as both the perfect sinless man and God, was not bound by any unjust societal norms. We see this most clearly in today's Gospel reading. Mary Magdalene and the other Mary go to the tomb early on Sunday morning. And it is to them both that firstly an angel appears and then Jesus himself. Think about it. How wonderful it would have been for them, women of their time, to be able to spend the rest of their lives telling people how they were the first ones to see the resurrected Christ. But brothers and sisters, was it because they were women that Jesus appeared to them first? Was Jesus trying in the first century to do a 21st century-like overturning of misogyny, bigotry and hate? Did he deliberately choose first to appear to women rather than the men he had only just ordained as priests and to whom he had given authority over the church? Brothers and sisters, let us consider carefully whether these three questions have any basis in fact. Why really did Jesus appear to Mary Magdalene and the other Mary first? Perhaps a closer look at one of the women, Mary of Magdala, will help to ascertain the answer to that question. Let me start by saying that apart from one instance, whenever a group of women are named, Mary Magdalene is always the first to be named by the Gospel writers. The only time Mary Magdalene is not mentioned first is when John says, "But standing by the cross of Jesus were his mother and his mother's sister, Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene." Of course, Mary, the mother of Jesus, would take precedence over Mary Magdalene. Luke tells us of the women who were accompanying Jesus on his ministry, that one of them was named Mary Magdalene, from whom 7 demons had gone out. Mark confirms this fact. Matthew, Mark, and Luke all mention an unnamed woman, a great sinner who anoints Jesus' feet with ointment, sheds tears on his feet, and wipes the tears with her hair. Of this woman, Luke quotes Jesus as saying, "Therefore I tell you, her sins, which are many, are forgiven, for she loved much. But he who is forgiven little, loves little." Please remember this point. John alone says, "Now a certain man was ill, Lazarus of Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. It was Mary who anointed the Lord with ointment and wiped his feet with her hair." John's Gospel was written late in the first century, probably well after the death of Mary Magdalene and Mary, the sister of Lazarus and Martha, who, according to John, turns out to be that great sinner. The big unanswered question then is whether the three women are one and the same. While the Greek fathers of the church questioned whether they were one and the same, most of the Western fathers believed that they were one and the same person, i.e. the great sinner who anointed Jesus was also Mary Magdalene, who was also Mary of Bethany, the one who sat at Jesus' feet listening intently. Now we know that Mary Magdalene was at the foot of the cross, that she woke early in the morning to go to the tomb, that she was told by Jesus not to cling to him. She obviously loved him very much. And I believe, brothers and sisters, that this is the key to unlocking why Jesus appeared publicly to her first. It was not because she was a woman or because she had not been a big sinner. In fact, she was likely that former big sinner who was forgiven much because of her sorrow for her sins. But not only that, she had received the abundance of forgiveness because of the great love. and in response to that continued great love she had for the Lord, I suspect much more than that of the male apostles, she was gifted a most stupendous gift of being the first to see her beloved rise from the dead. Mary Magdalene was an apostle to the apostles, but she was not sent in order to usurp the special responsibility that was given to the apostles alone. Brothers and sisters, the church has two elements, the mystical and the hierarchical, and each of us are called to love and become saints wherever it is that God calls us to. To become a priest or bishop does not make one better than a Teresa of Calcutta, or Catherine of Siena, or Teresa of Avila, etc. In fact, there is an old saying, "The road to hell is paved with the bones of priests and monks, and the skulls of bishops are the lampposts that light the path." If we want to see Jesus face to face, we need to be more and more like the unnamed sinner, the Magdalene, the woman of Bethany. For it is repentance of sin and a return of love for that forgiveness that gives us access to Jesus. So, brothers and sisters, what must we do to be able to receive, like Mary, the greatest grace of seeing the Lord face to face? Love, love, love. We must first love the Lord our God with all our hearts, all our minds, and all our strength. Then love our neighbours as ourselves. Please God, give us all this grace, so that we too may have the joy that Mary had in seeing face to face her Lord and her God.